Welcome back to another episode of the Know Your Power podcast. I am your host, Julia Renee.
And Kendall Aaliyah.
And you just moved your mic again.
I'm so sorry.
I was telling Kendall the last episode, I was like, you touch your mic like every 5 seconds.
Dude, I get nervous.
So it's like a nervous tick.
It is a nervous tick. Yeah. I either play with my hair, I play with the wire, or I touch the mic.
Yeah, I play with my hair a lot.
Remember when we used to hold our mics?
Oh my God.
Good times.
And it would like make
those are so loud.
It would make so much noise.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that we don't have to hold them anymore because my arm would get tired. I'm like,
And then you try to switch, but someone else is talking, and then you're just like making sounds. Yep.
Sorry that I just yelled in your ear. But today, guys, we are going to be talking about how we healed our relationship with food. You guys have heard us talk a lot about like our struggles with binge eating in the past. So I just want to put a blanket trigger warning over this. If this is something that you struggle with, we get it, like more than anything, that it can be so challenging and you can feel so alone. And undoing some of the damage that either society, like our parents, like things have happened to us is a challenge for sure. So we're just going to share some of our things that we did that helped us heal our relationship with food.
One of those disclaimers of we're not doctors. Yeah. These are what helped us personally. Yeah. And I've also like used some of these practices with the people around me that come to me with their own struggles.
Yes.
So yeah, not saying this is like one size fits all. Everyone has a different journey and a different path to like recovery with healing their relationship. But these worked for us.
These are just some tip-a-roonies that helped us. So we hope that they help you.
Yes.
So number one is practicing mindfulness in eating. Like pay attention to your food, like including like how it smells, how it tastes, like how does it feel in your mouth? That sounded weird. But like making this an eating like experience, like being more intentional when you're eating, because how many times have you like sat in front of the TV with like a bag of chips and then all of a sudden like the bag of chips is just gone? It's because we go unconscious. We're not being conscious when we're eating. We're not focusing on like how our hunger cues are, like if we're feeling full, if we're feeling stuffed, if we're feeling satiated, like whatever it might be, we completely like check out and go unconscious, and that can cause you to like overeat, and then you feel like, oh, this doesn't feel good later. Like the amount of times that I've done that is unreal.
For me, a lot of this also tied in with like what I was buying for myself, because sometimes I knew certain foods like I would tend to overeat more, or like are a higher calorie version of something I was craving. Yeah. And like those are little changes where if you're mindful when buying the food of what will create me to have the best relationship with this item when it's in my house and not just like in the grocery store and bringing it home with you. That's another area where you can be mindful before you even sit to eat. What food are you buying? Is it triggering for you? Things like that.
That's very true. Very true. Because like we're human, and if it's in the house, like most likely we're going to eat it.
Yeah.
Like it's so true. Like I don't ever have those types of foods that I know are triggering for me just like laying around, like available in the house. Like anytime people come over, like I have zero snacks for them. And then like, especially like if my little sister comes over, she likes to have snacks. I'm like, do you want a rice cake? Because I know like if I have it there, like I'm just going to unconsciously eat it and like walk to the pantry, walk to the fridge. Like, and then by the end of the day, I'm like, I've had like an excessive amount of calories that I actually wasn't hungry for. Yeah. It was just there. And that's the thing. It's like, are you actually hungry for this food? Or are you eating it because it's just like readily available to you?
I have to check myself all the time, because all my life I was like a boredom eater, where if I'm bored, I'll go open the fridge for the 400th time. So just becoming mindful of like, why am I actually grabbing this food right now? Obviously, food is fuel. Food is amazing. You should be eating. You should be eating a healthy amount of food too. Don't be under eating. That's not what we're saying. But when making those decisions of like, why am I eating and what should I sit to eat right now and how should I eat this meal right now? Those are things you have to, I guess, like count on or like look at.
Yeah, like really just checking in with yourself and being aware of what am I crave, like what does my body need right now? Like if you really just sit and ask yourself like what you think that your body needs, it usually tells you. We just tend to like ignore it all the time. Like I'll have moments where I really just sit and ask my body, like, what do you need? I'm like, I need like a good meal. Like I need some chicken. Like I need some rice. Like I need some avocado, like something like that. Cause I just can feel that my body needs that. Or like if it's morning and I'm having like breakfast or something, I'm like, do I want something that's savory or do I want something that is sweet? Like what does my body need? And I'm like, I'm really just feeling like I want like a good bowl of like protein oats or something instead of just like mindlessly like going and doing everything, being conscious when eating and actually eating your food and figuring out like, how does this taste? How does this smell?
Yeah.
Sitting down with it. Am I feeling full? Am I feeling satiated? Like what does that feel like instead of just sitting down like
when I had a negative relationship with food, I noticed one of the biggest telltale signs of if I go back to that or how it was at the time was I wouldn't even make it home with the food I was buying. I was first off waiting until I was so hungry that then anytime I would buy anything from the grocery store, I would open at least one of the items on my drive home. And I think that was one of those conscious efforts where I had to start telling myself, you need to wait until you're home, because like now I'm home and I ate all the rice cakes I just bought. And now I'm still hungry. I'm going to sit and eat a meal. Instead of I just waited for home and I ate my meal and then I was like, oh, I'm still a little hungry. Let me grab a rice cake or two.
Yeah.
Like that's such a different mentality and such a different experience while actually eating the food.
It's true. One thing that I've been practicing a lot with eating is just like being patient with it, like patiently making the food, patiently like eating it, like setting it like to the side for a second too, like purposefully slowing down, like almost going like super slow-mo with the food to force myself to slow down, because I've been a fast eater since I was little. Like when I was little, I was a wrestler and I was a very like highly active child, and I'd eat. When I would eat, I would like,
You're like
and
my brothers.
Yes. And I was also like almost competitively eating against my brother, because I was like, oh my God, he's going to eat all the food and there's not going to be anything left for me.
Yeah.
So I have been eating that way since I was little.
I want to add, it's better for your digestive tract too if you eat slowly. So that's another benefit of taking your time.
It takes our body and our mind to know that it is satiated a little bit of time. So if you're eating with like under 2 minutes, like you have no idea like if you're feeling satiated or not. You're not giving your body enough time
it's
to
so
know.
funny because I do that with my boyfriend, because he is one of those people that like he'll say he's not hungry and then once he starts eating it kind of breaks that wall and now he's like more hungry after he eats. So I'm really teaching him, because like he's not a bodybuilder. He's never had like a negative relationship with food per se. But I'm like, okay, we're going to wait 5 minutes, see if you're still hungry, maybe take a walk. If you're still hungry, go get seconds. Like don't just like assume that you're still having those same hunger cues as when you first sat down to eat.
Yes, it's true. Because like what happens, I feel like for me, is that if I do eat that meal really fast after being super hungry, since I ate it so fast, my body doesn't know if I'm satiated yet. So I immediately go and grab more food, but I was satiated. I just didn't let my mind and body catch up.
Yeah.
Like, it's
and then
so
you
weird.
might push yourself to where you're overly full, and that's always uncomfortable. Yeah.
Well, that's number one. Number two is avoid using food as a coping mechanism. So like while it might feel that food can like cure your stress, your anxiety, your other emotions, like try to find other helpful ways to process your feelings, such as exercise, like meditation, journaling, or even talking to a therapist or a friend or somebody. Because I do this all the time. Like immediately if I'm getting anxious, I go and grab food. Like yesterday I was anxious about something and I immediately like wanted to go and grab food. It's just like an initial like trigger. And what really was going on was that I was anxious about something with work. Like it had nothing to do with food. It's just that my trigger was anxiety, then go and grab food. Anxiety from work, go and grab food. So whatever yours might be, like go dig a little bit deeper. It always helps to journal and figure out like, where did this come from? Was it really because I was hungry? Was it because I got an upsetting email? I'm stressed about work. Like, am I having a fight with my partner? Am I feeling a little bit lonely? And I'm feeling that food can fill that gap. What really fills that gap is finding solutions with that problem that you're having, whether it is anxiety or loneliness or something.
If you mask it with something like food, and then you already have an unhealthy relationship with food and how you treat yourself after eating, then you might just be adding to the problem. I always noticed I was like depressed, so I would go and grab food, and then that was like in the phase of my life where I was binge eating regularly and constantly having like self-doubt and like beating myself up over it and things like that. And it only made my mental health worse.
It does. Yeah, I 100% agree. Because it's like, you are using the food to help you to help you feel better. And then like either if it's like a binge or whatever it might be, then you eat it and then you just feel worse. And then you're like, now I felt worse on top of my worse.
Yeah.
Which it's like this. So it was so counterintuitive. Like it didn't really.
Yeah. Honestly, therapy helped me the most when coming out of that bad relationship, because it was finally having like a new source of talking about my problems instead of just like facing them alone and masking it with things like eating and other unhealthy habits. Not saying, again, food is not unhealthy, but the way I was treating it was.
Yeah. Like especially there's a couple of things like when I'm working with my clients in the Know Your Power one-on-one coaching, like we have a segment in there that's about like building a healthy relationship with food. And there's a couple of things that I have them like read through. I'm like, do you do any of these things? And it's like hiding food or talking negatively about yourself when you do eat meals that are off. What else could it be? I have like a giant list of things. But just like things that are like red flags for if you can potentially have an unhealthy relationship with food. And it's crazy because like at one point, like I did all of those things, like, and I didn't even realize that I was doing it, which is wild. So yes, avoid using food as a coping mechanism. Talk about your feelers, whether it's with a friend, like reach out to somebody, have someone that you can count on or a therapist, and journaling about like, where is this really coming from? Like it's not the food.
Yeah. Find the source.
Like find the source. Number 3 is to stop labeling foods as good and bad. Ask yourself this, like when you're choosing what to eat, do you often call food like this is a good food, this is a bad food?
Junk food is so commonly used.
100% junk food. Like what I found for me is that when I did that, I would feel so much more guilty when I did have those foods that it was almost as if like it was quote unquote bad, like I was bad. So whenever I would have like a treat meal or something and like I wasn't on prep, like I was 100% allowed to do this. Like I wasn't bodybuilding or anything. Labeling them as bad, when I would go and have them, I somehow felt like now I was quote unquote bad.
Yeah.
So switching that mindset of labeling food as good and bad really helped me so that I didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong because I'm not doing anything wrong.
You're literally just eating.
I'm just like eating, and eating is not wrong.
It took me a really long time to draw that difference because I viewed almost all food as bad at one point in my time because like I assumed the quantity I was having was bad.
That's
and
true.
Then, again, those lead to beating yourself up. Instead, going in, I know it's so much easier said than done, and I'm in such a different relationship now with food than me like 2 years ago at this time. Like literally night and day. If you showed like old me now, she'd be like, there's no way I could like just keep food in my house and eat it patiently and eat things without like rushing it or feeling like it's the end of the world. So it's easier said than done, but drawing that line made a huge difference for me because I did label so many foods as bad, and that led to that guilty feeling anytime I ate anything.
Yeah.
So
true.
just teaching yourself that like food is fuel. You need food to function like a normal human, to keep your hormones healthy, to have a good workout. Like you need to be fueling your body. So just view it as like, oh, I had more calories. Okay, cool. That's more energy I can put into my leg day the next day.
Exactly. And it's so important to do that because overall, it's just so much healthier for you mentally because now you're not like walking around. Like I know that how I felt like I was just walking around and like food was always on my mind, like how much is in there? Like, is it too much? Is it too less? Like, I can't have this. I can't do this. Like those words like can't and don't and bad, like they make you feel like what you're doing is bad and you're just eating.
I think there's power in knowing what a nutrition label says and how to count macros and knowing what fuels your body the best. But there's also power in knowing those things and choosing not to look at it in certain scenarios because you can become so hyper fixated on the calorie count of something that like if I'm on my period and I'm craving ice cream and I go buy a little pint, like it is such a habit for me to look at the calories, look at the sugar context, and then like determine how much I can have, when instead, how about I grab it and I just eat until I feel like, okay, my craving's satiated, and then save the rest. Like you don't have to eat the whole entire container, but you also can and don't beat yourself up for
Yes.
it. Like just go into everything intuitively instead of like preconceived notion of this is going to be bad for me.
Yeah. And I think that word choice is so important because one thing that helped me, especially when like I was like in an actual dieting phase for competition, instead of saying like good and bad, it was more like I am choosing this and I'm choosing to do this because this is going to lead me to my goal. And that helped me a lot because there was power in choosing that I was just not going to have that, or I was going to have that
You
instead.
have the power over the food you're choosing to
Yeah.
eat. The food doesn't hold the power, even though sometimes we get into that mindset where it feels like it does.
Like it feels like it's just controlling your entire life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So number 4 is just listening to your body. Like your body, this kind of goes into number 1 too. But your body is going to tell you when you're hungry, full, and you're satisfied. Like pay attention to these cues. Eat when you're hungry, stop when you're full, and eat what you enjoy. Obviously, this is so much easier said than done, especially if you struggled in the past with me and Kendall, because it's almost like those hunger cues like we have ruined. Like we feel like we have ruined. And it starts at such a young age too, because when we're young, like just think about when you were young. And you just like ate when you were hungry, you stopped when you were full, you went out to play, and you didn't even care. Like you just didn't think about like how many calories were in things, like if you were eating too much, if you were eating too less. And then you get older, like you go into school, you know, diet culture starts coming around you, and then you start worrying about these things. And, you know, just like if only we can just think back to like what it would feel like to be like a child again, and just to
freeing
to
Let me
eat.
tell you.
Yeah, to eat when you're hungry, to stop when you're full. And I think that's the biggest key, is to just stop when you're full, stop when you're satiated. And it can be so difficult when you're not doing that because you're not listening to your body. And one thing that I always do to help me is like I'll place my hand on my stomach, and on a scale of like 1 to 10, 1 being like I'm starving, like we don't want to be there.
Yeah.
Because when we're starving, like we can make decisions that aren't really true to how we feel. And a 10 being like absolutely stuffed. We also don't want to be absolutely stuffed. You know, we don't want to be like sick and feel like we don't have energy and lethargic. Like being like a 7 or an 8 where we're just like satisfied, you know, your hunger, it's gone away and it hasn't gone past that point when you're feeling like, ugh.
Yeah.
So those little things can kind of
And
help
learn, like for me, I'm always a volume eater. I love like a big salad or anything where like my plate seems really large, but in reality, it's like not crazy high calorie,
Yeah.
or like I'm still getting my protein and carbs, but I also have like veggies on the plate just to like fill me up more, because I used to be someone who like it would take a lot of food to get me actually to that satiated point, or at least for my body to recognize
Yeah.
it. So using things like lower calorie, like vegetables, leafy greens, things like that, especially when in a dieting phase where you can't eat more when you want to eat more, that kind of helps you keep that full feeling. That way you're not constantly hungry, because when you're constantly hungry, again, like that leads you to making like irrational decisions and eating off of impulse instead of off of like what you should be eating.
Yep. 100%. The next one is to watch how you speak to yourself and your body. If you're constantly getting mad at yourself for eating certain things, calling yourself hurtful names, and like just not believing in yourself, it really starts to weigh on you. Oh my God, what did I say? Oh, okay. I was like, what did I write? You know, when you write something, you're just like, what did you even mean?
Always.
I'm like, I can't
Kendall
even.
yesterday can't talk to Kendall
can't
today.
even.
No
I can't
correlation.
Even. But yeah, just like really being mindful of like how you're speaking to yourself and your body, especially like around food, because that translates into your choices and how you feel about yourself. And I remember that like for me, which was so weird, it's like, when I would like look in the mirror and I would say something negative about how my body looked, I could take it either 2 ways. I would either like starve myself, or I would binge eat to like almost confirm what I believed about myself. You know what I mean? So if that's something that you're struggling with, just being more mindful of the things that are going on inside your head and the thoughts that you're saying and the things that you tell yourself like on repeat. Generally, like a lot of us have a couple of things that we always say to ourselves. So just be mindful of that and know that you have the power to alter what you're thinking and to shift from a negative thought pattern into something that's a little bit more positive or just neutral. It doesn't always have to be like, you're the sexiest person alive. It can be like, you're strong, you're powerful, your eyes are amazing, you're killing it. Let's move on.
Dude, I remember when my relationship was its worst with food, it was also the worst with myself. Like that's what I had to heal first in order to heal my relationship with food, because I was so mean to myself. And same, I would either take it to the I'm not going to eat today or I'm going to overeat every meal today. And both of those made me feel even worse and kind of confirmed, oh, you should feel bad about yourself. So take the time, like we said earlier, like look at the root problem, look at why you're treating yourself this way and try to fix that first. Like if you can, that's going to make like the food habits so much easier. I remember for me, like now I'm in a place. So just an example, this week I've been bloated. I don't know why, but that's fine. So I've just been wearing baggier tees. I'm still making myself eat because old me might have been like, oh, I'm bloated, I shouldn't eat. Like I'm scared to eat. I sometimes got afraid to eat because I knew it would trigger even more bloating for myself. But now I'm in a place where I'm like, I'm just going to keep eating my meals and like fingers crossed next week I'm not bloated. Like that's all you can really do. You don't have control over your digestive tract like that. So that's something that's out of your control. Instead of beating myself and being like, I'm gaining weight, I don't look good anymore. I can't do X, Y, and Z anymore. It's like, no, okay, like let's just objectively be neutral here. I'm bloated. That's normal. That's fine. I have a history of that. Let's just keep eating like normal and it's going to go away instead of panicking and starving or overeating.
It's like overcompensating with something else, whether it is overeating or undereating or excessive amounts of cardio or exercising a lot longer when you're lifting. Like these things they're not healthy. Like they're not healthy, because I sometimes too, like even go back to like the old me where I have something that's like off plan and immediately I have to go do cardio.
Yeah, it's like a panic.
It's like a panic. And like I don't do that anymore, like whatsoever, but I know that I used to a lot. And I'm thinking that like, because it's almost punishment. You're using it as punishment for yourself because you did something that is normal. Like you've eaten something off plan, you've had a fun food, you went to go treat yourself, you had a glass of wine, like you skipped the gym. Now you feel like you have to punish yourself for doing that, and you don't have to. Yeah. You don't have to. You just get back to like your regular healthy meals and it's fine. Like I went to the Olympia this past weekend. I had my meals delivered to my hotel. I ate as many healthy ones as I can, and I had some off free meals. And this weekend when I was on my way home, I literally was like, oh my God, you lost all your progress. You ate meals off. Like you have to fix this. You have to blah, blah, blah. And I was like, Julia, you're doing it again. You don't have to do that. And then now I'm just back and I'm fine. My weight is going to stabilize back to normal as I'm just eating my regular meals. But in the past, like I would have tried everything I could to quote unquote correct my mistake, even though it's not a mistake. I'm just human. Yeah. That's it.
It is so freeing, and you're going to be so much happier in the long run once you heal that relationship. And like, I know we're in a place now because it's been years of us working on it actively and making conscious choices. And those like old habits still come up and we have to overcorrect it sometimes and like reality check ourselves. But eventually it becomes second nature. Like I no longer have to like mentally fix myself on a daily basis as to like why I'm eating or how I'm eating. Like now it's just a part of my routine. I just eat how I eat.
And it'll happen, like it'll come up like here and there instead of every single day you're feeling like you have to like, oh, I'm fighting my own brain. But like the thing is this is healing your relationship with food, but at the root, it's healing your relationship with yourself. Yeah. Like that's really what it is. Like that's where it starts, and it translates over into how you feel about food and how you relate to food. Number 5 is, the last one.
Number 6.
Number 6, sorry, is to seek help. Like both of us got help and it worked really well for us. And we recommend it to anybody. Like if that's something that you are struggling with opening up to other people, like opening up to a stranger might be a little bit easier. Family, friends, like anybody that you can use for support. Like for Zach, like now that I'm not competing. Like I decided that I wasn't going to compete. I haven't even done an episode on the podcast about that, but I have a YouTube video about it.
I was like waiting for you to bring it up.
I know,
it's not
forgot.
My place.
I forget. Like I just put so much content out. I'm like, where did I put it? Yeah. I don't know where it went. But yeah, so now that I decided that I'm just going to wait till next year to compete, like I have to maintain the physique that I have right now. And I just said, Zach, I'm going to need your help. Like I'm going to need your help to hold me accountable and to, not ask me to like go out to eat every single day. Like we can do it occasionally. I'm like, I'm going to need your help. And in the past I would have never asked for help. But now like I'm in a point where I can count on him to also be there for me when I'm not strong enough to be there for myself.
Yeah.
So
I feel like we're similar in the fact that like when we're struggling with anything, it's very hard to like seek help with the people around us. Yeah. Like we're good at like showing up for things still, but then like when we're alone is when we beat ourselves up. So it's one of those things, like I think the first person I ever told was my mom, and she didn't get it at all. Didn't expect her to. I just needed to voice it to someone, and I just asked her for support, and she was very reciprocated in the sense of, I don't understand what you're going through just because I've never been there, but tell me what to do. Tell me what you need.
Tell me how
I would call her every single day. I also started therapy, and that combination of like talking to both of these people created a system that helped like implement some steps on me helping myself, but also gave me that support system of like, I'm not alone anymore.
Yeah. And that's like the biggest point that you made on that was you can tell people how they can be there for you, because you're right. Some people might not know, especially if you do struggle with a relationship with food or some sort of eating disorder and they haven't. It's difficult for them to like understand and empathize when they haven't been there. Yeah. So tell them how they can show up for you. Like that's what I told Zach. Like I said, I'm going to need your help in these kinds of ways. Like, can you do this for me? Can you do this for me? I'm not leaning on him like completely and totally for everything. Yeah,
that's a lot of pressure
for my
too.
Well-being. Yeah. But I'm also just like that added little boost, you know, like tell people how they can show up for you.
And sometimes it's like educating yourself and the people around you too, because you might not fully understand how you're feeling or what you're dealing with. I know every time we've talked about like binge eating disorder, we get people that are like, I have this or I had this and I had no idea. Like sometimes you don't know until you can like hear about it and recognize with something and relate to something. So also educating not only yourself, but the people around you, where like, say you live with your significant other, like maybe show them a YouTube video and being like, I know it might not make sense, but these are the feelings I'm dealing with right now. Like just so they understand what you're going through. Cause sometimes it's like a completely blind relationship where people don't know that you're thinking about food all day. People don't know that you're obsessing over what you ate and how you're beating yourself up, like, cause you're not voicing it. So how is someone else supposed to know?
Especially if there's somebody that never does that. Like they just eat like whenever. I remember when I was struggling the most and I would just like see people like at parties or at events and I was like, how can they just like walk around and just not be thinking about this food the whole time, not be beating themselves up, just eating when they're hungry and stop when they're like, I always like envied that they were able to do that. And that's just proof that some people like genuinely just don't struggle with this at all. And that's amazing that they don't. And I'm happy that they,
I don't wish it upon anyone.
I don't wish it upon anybody, you know, but getting people to like understand that can be challenging, but it's definitely worth it to have some people on your side.
I remember, I like went on like a party bus. It was my first time ever being on a party bus. It was kind of fun. It was for like my boyfriend's friend's birthday like a week or two ago. And we were on this bus for 7 hours. And I knew that going into it.
Nope.
And
never.
I knew going into it, old Kendall, my first thought would have been like, what are we going to do for food? Like 7 hours, no food. And then if we do eat, how am I going to eat in front of these people? Like I need to control myself and things like that. Yeah. And this time I was like, oh, cool, 7 hours. And then we stopped somewhere. We all grabbed food. It was like very chill. Like it was just like, it wasn't on my brain like it used to be, but it was funny because that was like a weird point where I could relate the two of like, I know old me would have like freaked out over like not having control over when I was eating.
And the thing about that is like, you're being present. Like when you're not being present, you are thinking about food and when you're going to have it or how much there is or the calories. But if you're actually present with where you are, you stop thinking about that. That's one of the biggest things that I've been practicing is just like being present with where I am. Because then I don't think about all of those other things. Then let them rule my mind. If I'm actually where my feet are standing, it's so much easier. And there's so many times I'm just like go unconscious and I'm like,
just like daydream about snacking.
And I'm like, snacks.
I still do it sometimes. Food. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just how you view it in your own sense.
Just come back to being present and it helps so much. But yeah, guys, I hope that helped. If you guys, have struggled with something like this before and like you've really been needing help, like definitely seek help. Like it helped both of us, but everyone's journey is different and we understand and we definitely empathize with you because we've both struggled with it a lot in the past. And if you ever need like a friend or a buddy just to vent to, you can always DM us. Like we'll be there for you, but also like seeking like professional help and like having friends around you is definitely a big plus too.
I was going to say, I love doing episodes like this because I feel like I'm speaking to the younger me and like
same.
Helping her. And it's still healing for ourselves. Like it's an ever growing journey. Yeah. So
every time we do these, like I learn more about myself too. And it's just a reminder for me to like continue practicing the things that I work so hard to like do and to learn. So
It's also so nice for me to like have someone like you where I'm like, oh my gosh, she totally gets it. Like I was in that exact same boat and it's crazy because sometimes you forget you feel so alone in it. So
very true.
Hopefully you feel less alone at the minimum.
We're with you guys. And as always, we love you all so much and you're more powerful than you think.
Bye.